This is Bulbophyllum Elizabeth Ann, and I have the clone Buckleberry, and it is growing in a sphagnum perlite mix. You can see that down in there, and it currently has one spent spike, and then it has 1, 2, 3, 4 spikes coming, and 1 in full bloom. So this year, this gave me 6 spikes. And Elizabeth Ann used to be in the family Certopetalum, and all the Certopetalums were moved into Bulbophyllum. So the flowers don't last that long, but you can see their funky shape. And I grow this very wet, and it's in a tray right now with my Australian type dendrobiums that I bought from Sunset Valley Orchids. And basically I just try to keep the sphagnum a little moist all the time. And I have a reptile fogger going that is sort of misting this area, and it mists for 30 minutes every, I think, 2 hours. So that is Elizabeth Ann Buckley, and I got this orchid from the Illinois Orchid Society sales table from one of the members who was selling this out of his collection. And I think this huge plant, I mean, it's bigger now because it grows really well, but I think I got it for like $5. This is Cattleya Bob Betts, the clone White Lightning. I got this as a freebie orchid from Hauserman's a few Christmases ago, when they let Illinois Orchid Society members have a free plant at the Christmas party. This is my second blooming of it. It bloomed last year. I'm growing it in semi-hydro, and you can see it right down in there. And I think the flower this year is much bigger than the flower last year. So the first blooming, I know the flower is a little bit smaller, but this now, pretty big, and I believe it is slightly scented. Yes, Bob Betts is fragrant. Back behind it, you can see these flowers are basically all wilted. On Monday, it was really hot in my grow area, and this was just starting to come, like the flowers were just opening up, and I didn't move it out. And I can't really vent the room very well right now since my operable window shouldn't be opened. And so this got too hot and all the flowers wilted. But this would have been Cataleya Penang Black Caesar. Overall, I want to say that my orchids are doing really well this year, despite the problems with keeping it warm in here, because I've been able to be home and keep them hydrated. And I think that that is the second most important thing, or the third one. It's part of my top 3 most important things for growing orchids, which I believe are sunlight, temperature, and water. And usually I skimp a lot on the water, and then the orchids shrivel and they don't do so well. So like one of the things that's doing really well, because it's getting a lot of water, is my Falcata After Darks. And I have 3 of them in spike right now. So there's a spike right there. That is my Baker's, I think, Black Magic. And it has black flowers. And then I have 2 more Falcata After Darks that are in spike. And the smaller one right here is Sunset Valley orchids, which is a spotted version of After Dark. And then this right next to it is one that I got from an Illinois Orchid Society member who was moving, and it's listed as Sunset Valley orchids, but she said that it's all black. So I'm basically trying to bloom it out to see that it is black or spotted, because Sunset Valley orchid, that clone is supposed to be spotted, but she says it's all black. And I want to say that right now I am still giving these Catasetums as much water as they will take. So in previous years, I tried to cut back on water when the leaves started turning yellow, like you can see here, and basically the flowers would blast. So right now, despite the fact that they are turning yellow and dropping their leaves, I'm still giving them as much water as they will take in hopes of getting everything to bloom and the flowers to not blast. So slightly different growth of my Catasetums this year. I have them near the front of my grow area so they get as much light as possible, but I have not cut back on water yet. So this is Cataleya, or I don't know, Cataleya hybrid, Little Mermaid Janet, and it only has one flower. I actually repotted this summer. It's growing in semi-hydro, and it was bursting out of its old container. So I just up potted it into a new plastic container, and it's still in semi-hydro. This spike did have 2 flowers, but I don't think you can, but basically one of the buds blasted and I only have one. Probably because, again, on Monday it got too hot in here. Also being home, I've really been able to keep a closer eye on how my orchids are doing because I look over each of them more often. This is, I believe, one of the plants I got from Susan this spring. It is Bryce Canyon Splendiferous. And I thought it was doing very well because it put out some new growths, but now you can see, look, I lost a growth, it turned black. And then when you look closer on this, look down here, is that not the biggest piece of scale you've ever seen in your entire life? So I think that this is it for this orchid. I'm not gonna struggle with it anymore. I need to make space, and it's gonna go away for space. In the same tray as that Bryce Canyon, I have, I don't know what GCT stands for, but it's Lawless Gloriana. And this is the first blooming of this plant for me, and it's possible that I'm losing 2 of the flowers already, I'm not too sure. But basically, I bought this as a bare root from Nats, I don't know, 3 years ago or something. And when I unbound the bare root plant, it turned out actually to be 2 plants stuck together. And so it was really small. And it has taken a while for it to grow up big enough to bloom. The other piece that came off of that one, I think I potted in bark and I sold at one of the iOS shows at some point. But to get to this, to take it out so I could enjoy the blooms, I had to take out all these other plants, and they're all in the same row as that Bryce Canyon with the scale. So before I put them back, I'm gonna give them all a little bit of Marathon, which is imidacloprid. And it's a powder, what's the powder there? And so I just take it and I just sprinkle it into the pot, like so, like a surface. And then I'm gonna put these back. And this seems to work. It's good for sucking insects because imidacloprid is a systemic. And this is what I use now instead of the bear spray. And also because this way it won't get it won't leak out all over everything. And I don't want the cats to basically eat any of it because I'm not sure how toxic it is. But there we go. So I'm just I know measure out on the small. It comes with a little, I don't know, spoon, and it has a big side and a little side, and I'm just using the little side to dump a little bit in every pot. And hopefully, if there's any scale in there that I can't see, this will treat all of it. This is a phoenicia falcata, and I got it from Hauserman's, I think last spring. And it is the variabilis type crossed to just regular falcata. And for a while I was trying really hard to get a pink neo. So this was part of my goal to get that. And then behind it, which is not bloomed, I also have basically just variabilis. So hopefully I'll have lots of pink neos coming into bloom at some point. And then I have a variegated neo behind it that I got from High Desert Orchids that is looking pretty sad. I have not done very well with neos in moss, or sort of pseudo okay with neos in moss. This one came potted moss and I left it. The ones from Hauserman's, these two are in bark, and I left them in bark to see how they would do. Right now it seems like they're doing better. They have lots and lots of roots. And probably if I hadn't been home for COVID lockdowns, these guys, and working from home, these guys wouldn't have gotten watered enough and the bark would have been too dry. But for right now, looks like they're growing really well. The Dendrocylumformosa formosan that I got from High Desert Orchids is, it lost a bunch of leaves. It looks kind of naked now. And then a bunch of the spikes, it looks like the flowers have died on it. I don't think these are gonna bloom. It's possible this stuff at the end is still okay. The spike that it had when it came is definitely dead. And you can see like this one, see like it's those flowers which were forming when it was shipping are all dead, but I'm hopeful that the end that was still growing will still be okay. It's good it came with 11 spikes because it looks like the travel was pretty traumatic for it. It was warm and then it got cold during transit. This twinkle that I got from High Desert Orchids that had, of course, the winter weather protection, of course, looks great because it was wrapped in plastic and it was protected, and of course it was warmer the week that it shipped. Sadly, this Sidium ornitho wrinkum that I got from High Desert Orchids, now that it's been here for 2 days, you can see that the cold damage is starting to show up on the leaves. And I thought that it had gotten too cold. So yeah, I really should have bought the winter weather protection on it, but I didn't, because hey, it was warm when I placed the order. And hopefully it will still bloom. So I don't know how well it will survive, because look at these leaves, right? They're really damaged. And usually when leaves are this damaged on Sidium, it loses the whole leaf eventually. The leaves just fall off. I don't know that this has enough leaves to survive losing all its leaves. So look at how damaged those are. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if, I mean, the pseudobulbs look okay, but it is gonna lose like all its leaves. And sorry, this is not ornithorhynchum if I said this is actually Cheriforum. So I need to pot up these purchases from Equigenera, and I wanted to show the Maxillaria variabilis against what we believe is variabilis, a black form of variabilis right here. So here's what I just bought, and it's pseudobulbs, and it's one leaf coming out. And then here's, look, there's a pseudobulb, and it has one leaf coming out. And the only thing I have to say is that the pseudobulbs on this, compared to the pseudobulbs on my existing plant, if you can tell, the new pseudobulbs on this variabilis are much fatter. So, like the ones on my existing plant, okay, I can't. The pseudobulbs on my new variabilis are much bigger than the ones on my existing variabilis. You can see they're just much fatter. I don't know if that's growth or an actual like difference, because all the pseudobulbs on my existing variabilis are much thinner than the new plant, on the new plant. Here is the Brazilla orchis, Schunkiana, which I believe is basically also known as Maxillaria Schunkiana. And you can see that the pseudobulbs look similar in shape and size here, but again, right, at the top of the pseudobulbs, this has two leaves, right, see, two leaves, and on mine, I have one leaf. So after I pot these up and grow it, the next goal will be to compare the flowers when they bloom. So after much thought, I am thinking that I will pot the Cataleya amethyst glossa that arrived bare root from Ecuagenera in a clay pot. I would really love to put this into semi-hydro, but I have had almost zero luck with species bifoliates in semi-hydro. They just shrivel up and die. I don't know if it's too wet or they don't dry out fast enough, but it's just so unhappy. And even though this has a new growth, I don't really see any live green root tips right now, and I just don't think it's gonna take through the winter. And also the other thing is that if we back up and look, it's gonna be huge. So here are some of my mounts, and you know, it's gonna be so tall comparatively. So I think the best thing is gonna be a pot. And I had to decide whether or not I wanna go with the little pot, right, and pot it really tight, or a bigger pot that has some room left. But if it's gonna go into a pot, it's gonna need bark. And I've decided to use a mix of orchiata with perlite. And the reason for the orchiata is not because I think orchiata is better or anything, but because I won 2 bags of it, or not one, but we had the Dirty Santa exchange, I guess 2 years ago, and this is what I came away with, and I basically in 2 years have never used it to pot anything. So I'm thinking good chance to use the orchiata, and then I'm gonna give it some perlite to make it airier and drain better. So really, I'm just trying to decide right now whether I wanna go with the littler pot or the bigger pot. No, I didn't mean for that to happen. Because or else the perlite's just too dusty. Let's mix it up a bit. See if that's the right concentration. Maybe a little bit more perlite. So there we go. There's my mix. Finally, I think I decided that I'd rather be lazier and not repot this as soon and go with the bigger pot, even though advice has been given that if I pot it tight, it will bloom sooner. All right, why is it not like pouring out of the container? I have to choose my hands. Anyways, I just, I don't really have time to repot all my stuff every year, and this will just give me a little bit more grow time before this gets too big in its pot to live. So laziness one on the whole potting thing. So there we go. Let me bang it a few more times to get it to as much as we don't think there's enough orchid in this. Have to make some more mix. Do I have to make more mix? No, I have to make more mix. Alright, I didn't spray this second bit down enough, and you can see all the perlite was at the bottom because that's how stuff settles. When you shake it around, the small stuff goes to the bottom and the big stuff rises up to the top. I believe that is called physics. Alright, so there we go for that, and I guess it'll stay in there by itself. I did bring up a ring in case I needed one for stability, and I'm going to raise this actually just up a little bit because I have buried the new growth. So let's just get that up a little bit. There we go. And then give it a nice press. It's firmly in there. Yay! All right. Not just the table leg holding it together. So to finish up today's video, I just wanted to do an update on my vanilla. So I have two in my plant room. I have a Splendiferous right here, and then over here I have, I believe this is an odorata. Yes, it's a vanilla odorata. And the Splendiferous is the one that over the summer I tried to take two pieces and grow it up on like the sphagnum tubes, like an experiment, and that didn't go very well because it didn't get enough water and it shrank up, so that didn't work. And then I tried to basically resuscitate them by putting them in a bed of moss, and they stayed alive that way, but fall came and the squirrels had a field day basically digging in that tray of moss. So finally I just got sick of the squirrels attacking stuff, and I just took the pieces and I stuffed them back into this pot. So I was done experimenting. So here is one of the pieces, and you can see it's got a new growth coming out, and then it's got a second one coming out like right here. Can we see that? Right there. I can barely, there, right there. So, and I think the piece that the workman stepped on died, and I had to just throw it out. I did try to get it to root, but it said no. So it got tossed out, but I have a new branch down here as a result of that bit of the lead dying, and it's doing pretty well. I mean, I don't know that I'll ever get to bloom, but it's staying nice and humid right now, and hopefully soon, given that this is doing this, I'll have some new vanilla bits that I can share with people. And then here's the odorata, and it's draping down like this. It's growing really well. I try to mist these guys every day. So it's really just that my grow area is very humid for them that lets them do this well. And then I wanted to show, this is nighttime now, the supplemental LED light tape that I have in here for my orchids. So you can see these guys that are in this corner that doesn't get as much light during the day are getting a decent amount of light at night. It's about 5 p.m. So that's 5. It's nice and dark outside. But these guys are doing pretty good. And then the room is lit with the strip that goes up to the ceiling there. And stuff seems to be encouraged to spike and bloom this way. As you can see, this is the Shari baby again. The red fantasy clone. So that's my update for now.